And we have long wondered about our parents' and grandparents' life here in Port Norris without knowing much of anything. I think I was here when I was 2 years old. There's clearly no memory of it, at least for me. But so we were extremely happy to get this invitation and start filling in some pretty significant blanks in our life. And I can tell you that our tour of Port Norris today was marvelous, and we wanted to thank Dick for that. He was really just an incredible host in showing us around the town, as well as showing us where our grandfather's store once stood, which is across the street from the bank, the former bank that's still standing there. So that was really an incredible experience for us, as well as getting around the town. I will also say that it's put my sister Sharon and I on a deep dive into Ancestry.com. And while it is one of the wonkier websites that I've ever had the misfortune to be on, we have learned so much about our family, and we're going to continue to dig into that. And really the impetus for that has been the Port Norris Historical Society and the phone call that we received to get us going on that. And you know, our grandfather, Abraham Kelberg, everyone knew him as AJ, we just knew him as Grandpa. But even my mom called him AJ. He passed in 1971, and I was 12, you were 14 at the time when he passed away. So, and he lived in Philadelphia and we were in Virginia Beach. So we didn't know him that well. But this has been really good, and Ancestry.com tells us he was from Granov, Russia, which is now in the Ukraine, as well as much of our family, which I will not give you the details for that because I'm still trying to decipher them as well. But in any event, thank you very much for the invitation. This is marvelous what you guys do here with keeping everybody engaged with Port Norris, past and present, is fantastic. I'm going to hand this off to my sister Sharon Shetler.
Thanks, Jeff. It's really great to be here, and I feel, gosh, overwhelmed because this was an area of our life that we thought we were never going to recover. Because the last time I was in Port Norris, I was 4, and I barely remember my grandfather's store. It's just kind of a shadow in my mind, but I know he had this incredible general goods store. And what I'd really like to do is tell you a story. And it's going to take me just a minute to connect the dots about that store. So I started my career as a biologist for the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration, and I was studying estuarine or coastal pollution issues, and I was at a science symposium. And at the symposium, there was a very famous scientist. His name is Dr. Hal Haskin, and he ran the lab at Bival, the Rutgers University lab at Bival. And he was the guy who really discovered that MSX was destroying the oysters, and he developed all these methodologies for creating resilient oysters. So I listened to his presentation. I'm pretty young, I'm 25, and I just kind of walked up there after this long line of scientists are congratulating him on his research. And I said, "Hi, Dr. Haskin, I work for NOAA, and you know, my grandparents lived in Port Norris, and my grandfather owned the general store." And he pauses as his eyes just kind of pop out of his head, and he goes, "Are you A.J. Kelberg's granddaughter?" And I said, yes I am. And he said he spent the next half an hour regaling me about the store. He said that he knew my grandmother and my grandfather really well. He bought everything from the store. He bought all of his clothes from the store. And when he needed something, my grandfather would always order it for him and make sure it fitted and had it ready to go when Dr. Haskins needed it. So I called my dad. I was so excited. I said, Dad, you won't believe this. I just met this guy at the science symposium. His name is Dr. Hal Haskins. Did you know him? He goes, "Oh, Doc Haskins? Oh my God, we all knew Doc Haskins. He was like better than a medical doctor. He was sort of revered in the community." So while I don't remember my grandparents well and I don't remember the store well, this memory of Dr. Haskins just kind of has always lived with me. It's this great opportunity to connect with this community. I'm really grateful to be here, and thank you all for bringing this back into our life. And I'd like to now give this to my first cousin, David.
Hi, I guess I am the eldest grandchild, and based on that, I probably have the most memories of Port Norris and Store and my grandparents. I have to admit that I never really expected to return to Port Norris. I do appreciate the opportunity to be back on some very fond memories and look at them. I'm glad my wife Adele and cousins could be here also. When Jeffrey told me about this contact that he had, that he was going, we immediately decided that we would be here too. Abraham and Sarah came to Port Norris, I thought in the early 1920s, but I think it was a little earlier than that. My mother Pearl was born in Port Norris on November 14th, 1923, within a year of the death of her elder sister Naomi, who died from rheumatic fever. Another sister, Flora, was born, followed by Lee, Sharon and Jeffrey's father. Our grandfather was successful in leaving Russia and coming to the United States. He originally went to Sioux City, Iowa, because he had some relatives there, and then had one interim stop before he came to Port Norris. To say that our grandparents had a traditional marriage would be true, but not fair to Sarah. She was an equal partner in the store, in addition to being the traditional wife. She worked tirelessly and never complained. So when I talk about A.J. Kelberg, I am also talking about Sarah. My parents would visit Port Norris about once a month, making at that time, a 2-hour trip from Philadelphia. They also would come prior to each oyster season to assist with the time when the captains would come in and buy rubber goods for their crews. They would buy vests and jackets and boots and whatever. It's somewhat ironic, though, that my grandparents made a good portion of their income off of oysters when religiously they were forbidden to eat shellfish. Port Norris was good to my grandparents, and my grandparents felt that they were good for Port Norris. Despite their diversity, they felt included and were treated fairly. My grandfather came to the United States, learned English, and melded into the community. He did this without losing his identity and what was dear to him. If you had a chance to look at the pictures back there, you can see that my grandfather appears to be a serious person. There was another side to him. He was very caring and had a good sense of humor. He enjoyed a good joke, especially when he was telling it. I will conclude with one final memory. I normally would not have gone into this, but being at the motorway, I can't resist. My grandfather liked Chryslers, which he bought in Millville. In 1960, he came home with a new car. It had huge fins and it was pink. We were pretty sure that he got a great deal, as it was probably a Mary Kay car that was ordered but not picked up. It was a Chrysler, and that's all that really mattered. I am sure he had no idea that it had a 383 cubic inch engine, a 4-valve carburetor, and that it could do 0 to 50 in first gear. When my parents bought the car from my grandparents, I had a great time driving it. So it is fitting that this event is being hosted here. I would like to thank everyone for this opportunity. I must admit, if someone told me I'd be back in this area, they could have knocked me over with a feather. But thank you to everybody, and it's been a wonderful experience for all of us.